Y'all, these story times had me stressed out. They really thought they were getting a normal roommate, but they got a whole situation. If you ever had a bad roommate, this one is for you because the red flags were there and they clearly ignored every single one. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for more story times because, baby, I got some stories for you.
Like the borders of her bed. If she sees this video, I'm sorry, but I did what I did. So basically what had happened was I literally had my dorm room to myself. It was just me, myself, and I had no problem if somebody else had to move in. Like, that wasn't an issue. That was not even in my control. But basically, I thought she was cool at the time. In the beginning, like, I thought she was really cool. She was a sophomore. I was a freshman. Yeah, she came in the way she had came in. So one day I had came in, and this is when I mentioned this is when things started taking a turn. I had came in my dorm one day and it was hella people in there, and I guess it was just her friends, and that's fine, that's cool. But when they're sitting on my bed and they're literally on my side of the room, that's where my problem comes in. But at the time I didn't say anything. I was too shy to say anything. But this became a off thing that just happened often. I had no problem with the friends in my room or in our room. It was just that them people was on my bed, like they were in my stuff. So basically this is where it took the turn. I had on my desk or under my desk, I had like this little bin with all of my toiletry products and everything in it. Like, you could see it as soon as you walk in, you can literally see it right there. And this was the time when she had started to use my products. I had no problem with her using my stuff. My problem was if it was running out, let me know, you know. But she had started using my stuff. That's fine. That's cool. I have no problem with that. Just let me know when things, are running low. So on this particular night, I was in bed. My TV was on. I was halfway asleep. She comes in the room, but she also comes in the room with one of her homegirls. So they both get into bed together. And so I'm laying there. Mind you, the way our beds were set up, we slept the opposite direction. I was facing this way. She was facing this way. So whatever I saw, I literally saw. So not even come to find out, it's exactly what I saw. They were coochie bumping in the bed with me in the room. And so I'm seeing them move under the covers. I'm seeing them do shit under the covers, literally right there, clear as day. And so this was going on for a good 25 minutes. Mind you, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what do I need to do not to, like, come off like as an angry black woman, not to come off like just weird or anything like that? But girl, you're literally coochie bumping right next to me in this room. Like, you could have took this somewhere else. So I got up. I walked out the room. I left the door open. I walked out the room. I went to go talk to a RA or one of the, residential managers. And I was telling her, I was like, they're coochie bumping. And I'm literally trying to sleep. Like, I'm literally in the room with her. They're coochie bumping. And so she had followed me to the room. And that's when she had saw the second girl in the bed. And the lady, she was like, you got to get out. Like, you got to leave. This isn't your room. You got to leave. And so my roommate, she was like, nothing's going on, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, bro, you were just coochie bumming. Like, you're not gonna act like shit was not happening. So we kind of go back and forth. And now I'm just like, bro, you're pissing me off even more because you're sitting here lying in my face when clearly that's what was happening, right? So the next day, she went to class. I was still in the room. I don't think I had a class till like later that afternoon, or like it was like I had one early in the morning or something. But I still ended up in the room by myself for the majority of the day, right? So she had pissed me off so fucking bad. Mind you, her side was dirty as fuck. The floor was dirty as fuck. I was cleaning this room almost every single day because of her. I mean, mud was trapped all on the floor. Like, it was crazy. So I decided upon myself. I said, I'm finna take her shoes. It was literally mud on the bottom of her shoes. I like clapped them on her sheets. Like, I took her shoes and I did this on her sheet. So I'm just like, bro, you really pissed me off. And then I had found my pepper spray thing. I literally sprayed the border of her mattress. I sprayed like a little bit of her pillow. Like, as bad as this sounds, bro, she pissed me off so bad. So I was looking for her to react. the night of, when she came back, and I promise she didn't get back to the dorm till like 11 o'clock. So I really was waiting for her to react or something. Honestly, she literally got in bed and went to sleep. I wonder if she noticed anything. I wonder if she noticed if her bed was a little dusty. You know how like you notice there's some crumbs in the bed or something. I wonder if she noticed the dirt like in there. I wonder if she smelled anything. I feel like she did, though. At the same time, she just didn't really pay attention. Mind you, she was dirty as fuck, so she probably didn't even know the difference. But later on, I ended up moving out. It was like after that day, it was literally the following day, I requested to, go into a new dorm. So my new dorm room was literally across the hall. And long story short, on that end, her friends had came in the middle of me moving out. They was just looking at me like I was crazy. They was looking at me like I was dumb, and I just moved all my shit. And then on top of that, she also had to move out. If one person in that dorm had to move out, the other person had to move out too. So she ended up moving up to the second floor. I felt like the second floor was perfect for her because all the hoes, all the bitches, like all the mean girls literally stayed on the second floor. And I'm like, that floor was perfect for her because like she literally was just a mean ass person. Maybe I was a mean ass person too, but like if you fuck with me, I'ma fuck with you too. But yes, that's my story time on when I decided to pepper spray and put mud on her bed because she pissed me off for the bed.
Okay, I just tried to tell this story on live, but nobody was joining. So I'm gonna put it on my page. In 2020, this is who the frick did I room with type of style. I don't know if I'm gonna do multiple parts. Honestly, I'll try to keep it as condensed as possible. But in 2023, I had a crazy roommate. I had to randomly room with somebody, college of course, and this girl was so crazy. She was consistently putting my life in danger, literally, to the point where me and my father, like at the end of all of this, me and my father literally had to go to the police station and like try to file a police report against her. Let's get into it. Okay, as far as like getting how I got to like meet this girl, we went to the same school. Now, I don't know if this is like a foreign thing for other people. To me, it's like, it's not normal, but it's pretty normalized that like sometimes you have to live with random people when you're in college. Obviously, like y'all go to the same school, y'all are like around the same age, but it's like housing might put you with like a random person. And at my school, like housing was very limited. So I needed somewhere to stay. This girl went to the same school as me. I texted her. We were like in contact for like a week or two. And then we ended up getting a lease together, getting an apartment together. Okay, at the time, I was really excited, like, to move in because it was student housing, but it was off campus. So basically, like, I got to play house for a year. And my freshman year, this was my sophomore year of college. My freshman year of college, I was living in the freshman dorm. So, like, we had hecka rules, RAs, all this stuff like that. And I was young and naive. So, obviously, I hated that. So, I was like, yes, I get to move into my own apartment. My parents were paying my rent. And so, like, I was just living La Viva Loca, baby. So fast forward to move-in day. Oh, I don't remember too much about like the actual move-in day. My first impression of this girl is that she was, very quiet. But off rip, I could kind of tell that we were never going to be like friends. Like, I didn't think that it was going to turn into what it did. But like off that first meeting her, I could really tell that we weren't ever going to kick it like super, super heavy. It didn't matter because I've always been like the type of person, like just because I don't like you, which not saying I didn't like her at first, but just because I don't like you, it doesn't have to be a problem. Like, I was living with this girl. We were going to be cordial. I was going to do my thing. She was going to do her thing. Another thing about both of us is that I thought that we were both like super quiet girls. So like, both of us were like a little bit more reserved, stay to ourselves, quiet, off first impression. So I was like, yeah, this is going to work out fine, whatever. Okay, the first problem, or like before I get into the first problem, let me get into a little of like the house rules that we set, or mostly that I set, because I was dumb at this time, but I wasn't like super, super dumb. I still kind of got the fact that this was a stranger, and like obviously she has a way of doing things and I have a way of doing things. So I kind of just let her know. Basically, my main thing was that it was a standard 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment setup. So I was basically like, everything that's out in the pantry, in the kitchen, in the living room, yada, 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 you're welcome to use it. Because basically I had my own bedroom and my own bathroom. So like anything that I wanted to keep personal to myself, I just planned on keeping it in my room. But I was like, yeah, if I get groceries or like little snacks or whatever, you're welcome to use it. The stuff in the freezer, is mine, because I had my own mini fridge that I was like gonna keep my personal stuff in, but like the stuff in the freezer is off limits, and everything else you're welcome to use, because otherwise it would be my room. Oh, my one other ground rule, which I think is like pretty standard for most people, especially women living together, is that if you're gonna bring anybody in, let me know first. As soon as you know, like, let me know, just give me a heads up. Like, obviously I'm not gonna say yes or no, like, you can't bring this person. I would just like to know who's coming in and out of my house. Thank you. Anyway, the first real problem that we had, which, like, looking back on this, like, oh my gosh, I was so stupid. Our like first month paying rent, right? Because I think we moved in like the middle of the other month, so like in the middle of September or August, so we had to pay like half, but like our first real full month paying rent, she was short. So basically how you were able to pay rent is that there's a portal, like you would see the whole number divided by 2. I'd pay my half, she'd pay her half. You didn't have to, like, you could do it, you know, separately, right? So I'm basically texting her like, okay, you know, I think we had until the 3rd or something. I was like, it's the 1st, you know, let's go and pay our little rent or whatever. And then as I'm texting her, like just laying in my bed, she knocks on my door and she asks me for $128. And I was like, okay, I had to turn my light on. But I wasn't even that like taken aback by the actual request of the money. I kind of was really pissed at the timing, because I'm like, girl, like, the clock strikes 12, like it's due today. And I'm a very like meticulous, calculated person when it comes to that type of stuff. Like, this is where we're living, you know what I mean? Like, did you just find out you didn't have the money today? Like, what's going on? I was pissed about that. So at this time, like I said, I was very non-confrontational, shy, timid. So basically I kind of just said it in a way of like, I was like asking her, like, you know, like, what's going on? I was just asking follow-up questions, and I think she kind of got the vibe like, oh, you know, she's not, I'm not gonna get this money from her as easily as I thought. So she kind of just like left it at that and came up with the money on her own, and we paid, you know, the first month's rent on time. Now, what I regret about this situation is that, or that specific situation, is that I didn't tell my parents about that. And I feel like if I told my parents about that, they would have been like, oh, hell no, like, I feel like they would have made me move out based off of that situation, literally, like knowing my mom and my dad. So yeah, I didn't tell my parents about that, and we kind of just like went on about our day. Now, I will say, now, with hindsight, knowing what I know now, I would have never told this girl that my parents were paying my rent and sending me money for groceries every month, because I feel like she started like pocket watching me real hard, and that's why she was so comfortable asking me for money, because we were both working at this time technically, right? I did hair. I started doing hair, you know, in college, just like as a little side hustle. And because, you know, my parents were generous enough to take care of everything else for me, my money was my money. I was using it on stuff that a 19-year-old would use money for. Like, I was door dashing, getting Ubers, going out sometimes, like, you know what I mean? Now, because of this, I feel like old girl started pocket watching me heavy. And when I say heavy, I mean heavy. And the reason that she was also able to do this is because I was so nice to her. I would invite her out all the time, like pay for her half. Every time that I would take like an Uber to campus, I would let her know, hey, I'm leaving at this time. Like, I'm taking an Uber. Like, if you don't want to walk to campus, like, you know, you can hop in the Uber with me. Everything, all the groceries, like 90% of the groceries that I got were for both of us, literally. I only kept like a little bit of stuff to myself. And like I said, I would put that in my room. And then also I would sometimes pay like her half a utility as well, personally. Basically, the reason that I bring this up is that I think this girl started assuming that I was stupid and that she could get one over on me because she was taking these things for granted. And the way that I know that is that she ends up asking me for thousands of dollars. But we're going to get into that in a different part, because I can tell I'm going to have to make multiple parts. What I will get into in the next part is the fact that she kept on bringing random men into the house, and not just random to me, they were random to her as well, babe. And I would walk in and there would be like 4 random men in my living room. Yeah. Okay, part 2 of my crazy roommate who almost got me killed and tried to leave me homeless. We have receipts in this part. Okay, if you can't tell, I literally just woke up. I'm coming to y'all live with no eyebrows, no makeup, and a scratchy voice, but I have compiled a hard drive, a list of pictures, screenshots, text messages, receipts, and I'm ready to use them today, so let's get straight into it. Okay, I'm not recapping part one. If you haven't watched part one, it's going to be pinned on my page. Part two is going to consist of one topic that's going to have 3 subsections. What's the topic at hand today? The people that she was bringing into the home. Okay, subsection 1, clients. Now, we both did hair, as I stated in the last part. She did hair a lot more than I did. She had a larger clientele than I did, but her clientele was mainly men, okay? She had a lot of random men coming in and out of the house, okay, because she was doing their hair. Now, while I didn't see a problem with this at the time, I see a problem with it now, okay? But at the time, all I was asking of her was like, hey, if you're gonna have a client, I said I didn't specify gender, but obviously, I'm more uncomfortable when it's a man. If you're gonna have a client, just let me know in advance so that I can act accordingly for my comfortability level, okay? Now, 2 little caveats of this subsection that I want to add. The first weird thing that she did pertaining to her hair client business deal is that she moved in first. She moved in before I did. And there was a little sectional and a coffee table in our living room that came with the apartment, right? And she took that sectional and moved it into her room. Now, while I didn't have a problem with this, I will say at the time I think I only had 2 or 3 friends, and every time they would come over, they would just be in my room. But is that not weird? Literally, who raised you? Because that's our couch. Why would you take it and move it in your room without asking me? And the reason that she did this was so that she could have more room to do hair in the living room, right? I want to read off a text message from the day before I moved in. I texted her. I said, hey girl, I'm moving in tomorrow morning at 9. I'm going to be stopping by Walmart before. So let me know if you need anything. Pretty standard text, thoughtful, whatever. And this is what she answers with. She says, some things that are nice for our place. Kitchen towel, sponge, dishes, mop, broom, dustpan, cleaning supplies, dishwashing detergent. I'm really waiting for you to come so we can set up the hair area. I think we should take the couch out and decorate the living room. So she was telling me all this, but when I got there, the couch was already in her room. So basically what this turned into, she was really good in the beginning at telling me when she had clients, but then she stopped keeping up with it. So I'd walk out of my room and there'd be a random man in my living room, which is that's not a great feeling to have as a young girl or just a woman in general. So yeah, that was the first issue that I had with her that started building animosity, honestly. And I will say, I did mention it to her multiple times, hey, tell me when you're gonna have a client over. She just stopped doing it. Okay, the second section is boys. Now, this is separate from the male clients that she had. She also had a plethora of personal men that she was bringing through the house. Now, I have these listed in order from best to worst, or not best to worst, but the ones that I had the least problems with to the ones that I had the most problems with. And boys is in the second place, okay? The problem that I had with the men that she was bringing through the house for whatever personal reasons is that they would be hotboxing their room 24/7. And again, sometimes she would have these men in her room, right? Whatever, you're an adult, you do you. But she would also have these men in the living room. It was always men. And it would be sometimes it would be just be one, but sometimes it would be multiple men, 3 or 4 at a time. And they would be on the couch in the living room, just smoking. And I'd be trapped in my room for literally hours because I did not want to come out to 4 random men hotboxing my living room. So I would just literally be in my room starving. If I needed something, I could not come out. Yeah, and she didn't care. And what she would do when her guests would come over is that she would pull the couch out of her room. And I think I did end up saying something about this but why would I have to? You're literally crazy. So she would bring the couch out of her room when her guests would come over, and then put it back in her room whenever, they had left. And so that was something that also really bothered me. But the amount of men that were in my house, okay, this was my freaking house. Thank you. I paid the bills. I paid the rent. She did too. But it's just the amount of men that were in the house was just an ungodly frequency. It was just so uncomfortable, and I would tell her about it and she just did not care. Okay, the next section that I'm going to talk about, which is the most important of this topic, is going to be her friend who was a chef. Now, I want y'all to stay with me because this is actually going to lead into our first like real fight that I have text messages of and screenshots of. So just stay with me. Okay, so about a couple months into living in this apartment, she started bringing this girl over. Thank God it was a girl, at least, who was a chef. And they would spend hours, 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 like literally like 5 to 6 hours in the kitchen, in my kitchen. I'm going to keep on saying mine, okay? Because I don't care. Y'all will realize why. In my kitchen, cooking and blasting music, okay? I'm talking from sun up, like literally 9 a.m., okay? 9 a.m. She would come over. They would put music onto the TV, and the wall that the TV was on the other side was my room, right? Of course. And they would cook for literally hours. Now, there's a couple problems with this, right? Now, the main problem with this is that we paid utility, right? Gas isn't free. Electricity isn't free. We pay for it. So there's someone who does not pay rent, okay, who's coming in and hiking up the gas bill. And I'm talking, so what these girls were doing, they were making plates for people on campus, and they basically had like two, what do you call them? Two like little cooler bins, like huge cooler bins of plates that they were making. So this was a small apartment kitchen that they were like cranking like probably 70 to 100 plates out of this small little kitchen. I want y'all to guess how much our gas bill was, okay? Now, obviously, our utility was not that much because it was student housing, right? And we were students and we're like broke or whatever. So like, obviously, they're gonna understand that. But I would say within like before this girl started coming, our utility was literally only like $35 to $50 max. This girl doubled it. I'm talking, we were looking at 102. It started in like the 80s, and then we started going up to literally like 102, 104, like, which that's not crazy, but it's a crazy jump from 30, okay? And here's my problem, like, if it was her doing this, that would still be an issue, right? But your friend who does not pay rent, who doesn't pay utility, is running a business out of my kitchen, off of my money, the money that I pay. I'm paying for her to run this business, and I don't even freaking know her. What the frick? So this is what's going to lead into our first real like tiff, our real like first real headbutting, because she has the audacity to text me a screenshot of our utility bill and say, I guess we have to do better at conserving energy. Really? Okay. So that was really strike one, but that's not what sent me over the edge, babe. November 3rd, 2023, I wake up, I go out of my room, and right outside my door, at the bed of my feet, this is what I see. Part 3. Okay, y'all, part 3 of my crazy roommate who almost got me killed and tried to leave me homeless. I am busting out the rest of the story right now today, which is what I should have done in the first place. So sorry about that, but let's get straight into it. Okay, if you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, then you definitely need to go do that. Basically, where we left off is when I showed y'all that picture of the huge red bucket of raw turkey legs that her friend left laying right outside my door. Okay, so basically this friend would come at like 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning. They would be blasting music. They would mess up the entire kitchen, right? And then they would leave for a couple hours and leave the place literally a mess. Now, the fact that they were leaving the apartment completely disgusting and nasty was not the only problem. It was also the fact that they were using my pots and pans, okay? Now, I don't cook, and I'm literally like notorious for being a horrible cook in my family. So I literally had like 2 pots and 1 pan, and they would cook using my pots and pans. Now, I know, like, in the other part, I said everything that was out in the kitchen, you're welcome to use, but it's just like she would cook literally like noodles or something, like spaghetti noodles, and leave the spaghetti noodles there for days in my pot. Like, what? So this was also another case where I was starting to grow animosity towards this girl. And you're probably like, oh, like, why didn't you ever say? I said something. I would say something all the time. Like, obviously, I'm living with this girl, so I would try to say it in a very nice and cordial way, but it just wasn't like getting through her skull, because later on, you'll find out that this girl is literally insane. So I just want y'all to keep track of all like the trifling things this girl is doing. She is bringing multiple random men through the house. She is bringing her friend over at 9 a.m. in the morning, blasting music, leaving the kitchen a mess. Oh my gosh. The weed. This girl, she was from California, okay? And if you know anything about people from California, or like if you've heard anything about people from Cali, they love to smoke weed, whatever. This girl would smoke inside the house, so much so that it would come through the vents and stink up all of my blankets, all of my clothes. The whole entire house smelled like weed. It was just horrible, literally. So now this is where we're going to move into a different section, and this is where things really start to pick up. Okay, so one day I have a couple friends over. We're going to a party that night. So I invite, I think it was like 3 or 4 friends. Literally, it was 4 friends, right? We're pre-gaming. We're about to go out. Okay, we had to rush out because we had to catch our Uber, right? And after I get back that day, she has the audacity to send me this text. She says, and I'm going to read the text word for word. I be having a lot of guests, but I find myself picking up after you. So let's do some chores on certain days, or have an understanding on cleaning up after ourselves. Now, that's a nice and respectful text that I would have received graciously if she wasn't psychotic, okay? I tell you, and I can like insert pictures, or maybe I'll put in the comments. Like I said, this girl and her chef friend would wake up every single morning on the weekends and leave the kitchen looking like a massacre just happened. And the one time that I have friends over and we have to, and mind you, I came back that night and I cleaned up after myself and we had to rush out to catch an Uber, she sends me that text. So I reply and I'm like, I acknowledge you picked up after me last night. I said I was in a rush, which I appreciate, but I really can't recall another time. If you can, then let me know specifically what it is and I'll acknowledge it and fix it, right? She responds and says, don't even worry about it. Or like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't know if it's just like the lawyer in me, but I'm a very like solution-based person. Do not tell me about a problem if you don't want it fixed. If you don't want the problem fixed, shut up. Like literally, ooh, I'm getting a little... let me catch my composure a little bit. But yeah, don't tell me about a problem if you don't want it fixed. I was like, hey, I don't recall you picking up after me another time. Like, let me know like what other time it was. I'll acknowledge it and fix it. I said that word for word. I will acknowledge it and fix it. And you're talking about some don't even worry about it, babe. Then why'd you bring it up? Don't ever do that again. So basically the gist of that situation is that after she texted me that and I responded, I was like, hey, like do you want to come out so that we can talk, right? And we can make this plan of the chores that you proposed. And she was like, then continues to send me this long paragraph about how she doesn't want a problem and how she doesn't like confrontation and yada, 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 yada. Do not throw a stone and then hide your hand. You brought a problem to me. I want to get it fixed. And you're like, wait, but I don't like confrontation. Like, no. I was over it. But we ended up like getting past that situation. So now I'm going to get into the second part before things really like blow up. Okay, so now her birthday's coming up, right? And she invites me to her birthday party, but like it was a kickback at her house. Like I don't have a choice but to be invited. I asked her if I can bring 2 friends. She's like, yeah, great. So the day of the birthday party is here. Again, Miss Chef Friend is here. They're cooking all day, just hiking up that gas bill. Oh my gosh, love it. And then what do I have written here? Okay. I remember how I told y'all that we both do hair, right? This is like our job. I get paid to do it. This girl is not my friend. The day of her party, she ends up like having me do her hair because she wasn't able to do it. And sure, like that's a nice gesture and a favor, but it's like, girl, like I don't know, why didn't you pay someone else to do it? I feel like she assumed that I was gonna do it, and we were not friends like that. So whatever. The party gets here, the kickback is going on. It's just a bunch of like, again, random men. So many men. Where are you meeting all these men? Maybe I just don't have motion like you have motion. Okay. But I bring my two friends or whatever. We end up, they want to go to the club, and that's just not my speed. So me and my friends end up like just going out, like staying a little bit at the kickback and then going out and doing our own thing. Now, one thing I forgot to mention earlier about this girl is that she had lost her key, right? Which I don't see how that's my problem. So I was having to open the door for her literally all the time. And this is something that did irritate me, I'm not gonna lie. The day of her party, I get back into the apartment at probably like 1 a.m. She is out. I don't know when she's gonna get back, but she doesn't have a key. So I'm gonna be the one who has to open the door for her. Mind you, I've been telling this girl, like, you need to go down and get another key because this is something that's irritating to me. Yeah, so the night of her birthday, I get back in the apartment like late at night. She's still not there, and I'm like, well, whoop-de-doo. I mean, it's your birthday, I guess. Turn up. But then I wake up to like 5 or 6 missed calls from her at 6:37 a.m. in the morning. I don't know about y'all, okay? But at that time, I was not waking up at 6:37 a.m. in the morning. I'll tell you that right now. So obviously I didn't see the calls because babe, I'm knocked out. Like I don't know what you expect. And I don't get back to her until 10:05 a.m. and I'm like, "Hey, I'm awake now. Like let me know when you're coming back so that I can unlock the door for you, right?" So she comes back, I open the door for her, and I feel like old girl's a little bit salty, but I don't know what to say to you, babe. Like, you're an adult. Go get your own key. Like, I'm not at your beck and call literally every time that you need the door open. And we literally had a fight about this. And I'm going to read off a text that I sent to her. So this is a different situation of when she needed me to open the door and I was just busy or I wasn't home or I didn't see her text. She texted me at 11:41 p.m. She says, "You home?" question mark. I didn't answer because I didn't see it. And then I guess she had to like go somewhere else because I couldn't open the door for her. And then she texts me again at 10:11 a.m. and she says, "So you're home?" question mark. All I needed was for you to open the door, but it's good. Now, I don't know how, like, I don't remember this specific situation of like how she figured out that I was home without being able to like get into the door. But this is my response to her. I said, "You asked if I was home Monday. I said no, which was the truth. I got home last night around 9 p.m. and was passed out. I couldn't get up at midnight to open the door for you. Sorry. If you need me to open the door, just say that. I would have let you know when I was available. Otherwise, when I'm home or not really isn't any of your business." So now this key situation is another back and forth that we're having. But now once this blows over, she starts having issues with the rent again. And I will get into that in part 4, which will be out right after. Okay, part 4, my crazy roommate who almost got me killed and tried to leave me homeless. Okay, I'm busting out these parts today. The story will be finished. If not in this part, in the next part. But basically we left off at where, we were having that issue with the key situation. And then once that blows over, she starts having issues with the rent again. Okay, throughout this whole situation, remember in the first part, I said that basically all you had to do to pay rent was go into the portal and you could pay your half separately. Like, you don't have to do it together. My portal kept on breaking down, okay? This was a separate issue that I was having with the leasing office and with like their IT department. I don't freaking know, because my portal kept on like going berserk, literally. One time I logged in and it said that I owed like $7,000. My rent was not $7,000, nowhere near. Or it would just like my password wasn't working, something. So I was having to send her the money that I owe, my portion, to her mom. Now I'm not stupid, okay? I would label it rent. So like she wasn't using it for anything else. And if she did, we would have a problem, which we did end up having a problem. But that's just a preface for this part of the story. Now, during the month of November, our rent was like was higher than it was, not much higher, but it was higher than it usually was. It wasn't a late fee. Like till this day, I'm not sure what it was, but I went ahead and like paid it and sent the money to her mom. Now, this is the holidays. Like there's people are moving back home. I was not moving back home, but I was going back home. There was a lot of moving parts, so we end up forgetting to pay our utility bill. So I text her, I say, hey, we forgot to pay the last utility bill. It's 2 days late. It's $122 now. That's $61 each. I can pay it in full and then you can Zelle me or vice versa. Which are you comfortable with? So she ends up telling me that's okay. So I pay the utility for that month in full, but this is with under the impression that she's going to send me the other half. So I never ended up seeing that money, by the way. But anyway, that was like the little tiff in November. Now, in December, we end up like paying everything smoothly, like nothing. Actually, our rent was actually lower, so I think it like evened out. So we ended up paying everything like on time, great, no issues there. January is when ish hits the freaking fan, okay? Okay, so again, remember, my portal is broken. It's always going berserk, so I'm having to send her mom the money. On January 1st, I send her mom the money, my part of the rent. Again, it's always labeled rent in the Zelle, so like there's no issues there. And then I go on about my merry way. At this time, I'm home. Okay, I'm not. Neither of us are in the apartment. I'm home for the holidays, and I sent the money for the rent. I'm living la viva loca, baby. Like I'm good. Well, someone tell me, audience, tell me why the frick when I come back home on January 11th. I'm home from the holidays. I'm, getting settled back in. I walk up to my door and I see a notice saying that we have not paid rent for the month of January. So when I see this, my heart literally drops, but I text her right away. I say, hey, we got a notice. I say, hey, we got a notice on our door saying we haven't paid rent. Question mark. Like, because that was my honest reaction. Like, question mark, what the frick? And she says, yes, I have to get a money order and give it to the office. We can't pay it through the app anymore. Now, basically, the way that this apartment worked is like after you haven't paid your rent after a certain time frame, they lock down the portal and then you can only pay it through a money order. I don't know if this is normal or not. This is just the way that they did it, right? So she tells me oh, it's because, I need to go get a money order. But in my head, I'm like, why wasn't it paid in the first place on the first when I sent you the money? So this is when this girl really starts becoming evil, okay? Because remember, I told y'all, I've always had an issue with my portal. It was something wrong with I don't know if it was my numbers or something like that. She ends up telling me that she needs to get a money order because there was something wrong with her portal and she couldn't go in and pay it, and we're gonna have to go down to the leasing office and talk to them, which I was all for it because I was pissed too. So now we low-key start having beef with the leasing office, right? Because this girl is telling me her portal is down. I believe her because also my portal has been down multiple times, okay? So I'm okay, we need to go down and talk to these people and tell them this is an ongoing issue. It's causing us, to not have a way to pay rent, blah, 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 this, that. So I email the I don't know what her title is, basically the general manager of the whole entire apartment complex. Mind you, at this point, they have tacked on a pretty hefty late fee to our rent. So that's why I sent her, the email was feisty, okay, because I'm pissed. I'm babe, our portal is down, yada yada yada, you're gonna tack on this late fee, you need to waive it because this is y'all's fault, right? Oh my god. So basically I'm going back and forth with the leasing office. We're going back and forth trying to get an in-person meeting with the leasing office. Mind you, time is moving on through this and our rent still hasn't been paid for the month of January, right? So we end up setting up, an in-person meeting with, the manager of the complex or whatever. And I noticed during this meeting that I'm doing most of the talking And, you know, she's kind of just like sitting beside me and being like super quiet, which is weird because when we would talk about it, like we'd both be on 10. We'd be like, what the frick? Like these people, you know, they're not letting us pay our rent, yada, 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 right? So I'm doing the talking and I'm basically telling this lady, you know, why it is unethical for y'all to like tack a late fee onto our rent when, you know, we have proof that our portal was down. And now I showed her my proof that my portal was down. But again, I was doing most of the talking, right? Now we are well into January, okay? When I say well into January, we're well into January. And at this point, oh girl ends up telling me that her portal is back up. And she goes in and pays my half of the rent with the money that I sent her mom, right? And this is January, y'all. This is January 23rd, okay? So at this point, my half of the rent is paid. My portion of the rent is paid, right? But we're still trying to like email somebody above this lady that we were initially talking to so that we can get the late fee waived, right? Why does she text me, y'all? Why does this girl text me and say, oh my God. She tells me, hey girl, the police came to our door and gave us a court date. You're joking, right? So basically, while I was in my room, I guess, the police had came to our door and like served us a court date. It wasn't an eviction notice yet. I don't think so. But yeah, we had a court date. I don't even know how that works, honestly. Obviously, because I've never been through anything like this. So I'm like, the gist of it at this point, I was like, oh no, like let's just go ahead and get this handled. Like, let's go ahead and get the money order, you know, pay the rest of it. Like, we'll pay the late fee because I'm not trying to have a run-in with the cops. You know what I mean? So basically now this girl has given me like every excuse to why she wasn't able to pay like her half. First it was both of our halves of the rent. Now it's hers because initially her portal was down. Then when her portal got you know working again, she went in and paid my half, but then it was too late to pay her half because they shut down the portal again because we needed to do a money order. Then she talked about how she was going to give me cash, yada 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 yada. The police was at our door. I don't care how we get the money, or I don't care how you get the money, because at this point my half was already paid, right? I don't care how you get the money. Get it and let's get this resolved now, okay? So I end up texting her. I'm like, hey, can we talk? You know, let's go ahead and get this resolved. I went in, I had her log into her portal. I went in and I did the math, and she owed through her half like over $1,000, well over $1,000, and I owed like 100 and something. Okay, so I was like, let's go ahead and, you know, get this resolved so that, you know, I can sleep in my house peacefully. So I was gonna do everything. Like, oh, all she had to do was send the bread, the money, and I was like, I'll go down there to my bank, I'll get the money order. There's a fee to get the money order, so I was texting her like, we're doing this equally in half, okay? Like, I'm not going through and paying out of my pocket for when we're both equally responsible for this. So I was like, here's the money for the fee. Here's the breakdown for the fee of the money order. And then I also tacked on the money that she owed me from the utility bill that we agreed to pay that one in half, right? And this is her response. So she responds and tells me, because we had a talk in person, and then I sent her a breakdown of all the money, right? Clear and in plain English, because that's what you speak. And she says, money I owe you from utility bills, ? You're making everything so complicated. Part 5. Okay, last and final part of my roommate who almost got me killed and tried to leave me homeless. Okay, we've made it to the end, y'all. I'm sitting down on my closet floor because my room is literally a mess, but I needed to finish this story and get it out today so I can stop worrying about it. So let's get straight into it. Okay, if you haven't watched parts 1 through 4, then you're gonna be so lost, babe. So just go watch those, and I'm starting right where I left off. So basically, after I break down the price for her of everything that she owes, right, she ends up acting like super confused and like she doesn't know what's going on, and like I'm attacking her when all I'm telling her is like, hey babe, this is what you owe, pay it so that we don't get evicted, literally. So all of this is going on towards the end of January. My birthday is in the beginning of February, okay? I'm going home January 30th for my birthday. So I'm like, hey, at this point, it's like January 27th. I'm like, hey girl, we need to get this done so that I can be at peace before I go home, before I try to like turn up for my birthday or whatever I'm gonna do. I need to have a clear conscience and a clear mind that I'm gonna have a home to come back to. So yeah, we need to get this all finished and done. On January 29th, her mom sends me $150. And at this point, this is where like alarms start going off in my head, right? Because I want you all to know, first of all, before y'all call me stupid, dumb, naive, I already have thought these things about myself, because at this point, I still believe that she had the money to pay the rent, right? But there was just issues with the portal, and it was like, because we had to get the money order and do that weird thing, like that was the issue. So her mom sent me $150 when she owed well over $1,000. And so that's when I was like, okay, something is not adding up here. So that was the first red flag for me at the time. Obviously, like with hindsight, I'm looking back and I'm like, oh no, this girl was taking me for a fool, which I was. That was the first red flag. I actually, because I want to condense this, I actually end up going back home before we can get this whole like money order situation resolved. But my plan in my head was, okay, I'm going to be with my dad. I'm going to be with my parents, right? What I'll do is I'll literally, we already had my portion of the money, which was not that much, right? She owed like over 80% of it, right? So I was like, well, I'll just have my dad go get the money order. That way, like, you know, it's easier. He knows more than I do. I just need the dollar amount, her portion, I'll have my portion, we'll combine it, and then he'll do everything else. He'll literally like drive there, drive back down, everything, right? So I was like, okay, I feel comfortable going back home because my dad is going to handle it. So the day that I like am ready to go to get the money order with my dad, I text her, I said, good morning, when you send this, send February's rent as well. Because at this point we were coming up on, it was February 2nd, literally. So I was like, hey, send February's rent, we'll take care of the 90% of what you owe from January, and February as well, send it all together and we'll take care of it, right? I text her that at 10:12 a.m. She doesn't answer. I text her again at 11:20 a.m. I said, hey, I called, I don't know if you're busy, but call me back. Because at this point I'm like, okay, let's get the money in order. She was like, and I want y'all to know, this whole time she was acting like she had the money. It's just that like it was an issue with like the bank, or she needed cash, or her portal wasn't working, but she was like faking like she had the money. And so at this point I start like, bells start going off in my head. I'm like, okay, what is going on? I'm a little bit alarmed. So I start blowing up this girl's phone. So she's not answering me. So I actually called the leasing office, and they tell me something that makes my stomach drop. Now I'm reading the text messages here. The verbiage that I used was like, hey, I need you to answer my messages. I called the leasing office and they said something about us being on active leave. I don't know what that is till this day. All I know is that it is not good. So she texts me back and says, I'm trying to figure it out, period. Trying to figure what out? What are you trying to figure out? I'm confused. I'm really confused. I figured it out for you, babe. And let me tell y'all something. The apartment complexes are a business, okay? Once you like give them the money that they're asking for, they're gonna leave you alone. So there was no other, it doesn't matter like what the issue is. It doesn't matter how we got them the money. I knew that as long as we got them the money, there was gonna be no issue. So I was confused on what she was trying to figure out, until she texts me back and says on February 2nd, mind you, we've been trying to pay rent for the month of January, and now we're into February, and we've been having issues with the portal, with the money order, with needing cash, with this and that. She texts me and says, I'm having financial issues, and if I can't come up with the money, then we're gonna have to move out. Now, I just want to do a little disclaimer before I chew this girl out. There's nothing wrong with having financial issues. There's nothing wrong with, you know, being a little less fortunate, especially in this economy. Everyone is struggling. I was very fortunate and privileged for my parents to be paying my way through school, paying for my groceries, paying for my apartment, yada, yada, yada. Okay, we got that out of the way. Why the friggity frick did you wait a month, a full entire 30 days, okay, to tell me that you did not have the money to pay rent for the month of January? Why did you intentionally lie, okay, and make it seem like you had issues outside of having the money, that you had the money ready, okay, but there were just issues with the portal? There was issues with the late fee. There was issues with the money order, okay? You lied on purpose. You deceived me on purpose, and you made it seem like you had the money when the whole time you didn't. So I text her and say, I kind of already figured that out. I understand if you're going through something. I hope that sorts out for you. Honestly, I do, but I'm liable. I'm liable for you. So if you couldn't pay for the month of January, why didn't you tell me earlier, okay? And again, I want to reiterate, I am not mad that this girl could not pay her portion of the rent. I am mad at the timing and the fact that she lied about it, whether she could pay it or not, okay? Then she texts me back and has the audacity to ask me to cover her portion of the rent, which at this point, the balance on there was over $3,000. Now in my head, I'm like, I know that did not just ask me for that amount of money. Ask my parents for that amount of money. But anyway, I digress. I was like, no, are you crazy? I don't, even if I did, I wouldn't give her $10. I didn't know her. I'm not about to. You never give away money that you need back, okay? And if no one has ever taught you that in life, then you need to learn it. I'm here to teach you. And $3,000 is not something that me or my parents can just give away willy-nilly like that. So basically, at this point, we're like, frick her. Me and my parents are now in like damage control mode. We are trying to figure out a way to basically break the lease, because the lease was under her name technically, right? Basically, the legality of it was that she owned the apartment, but I was a roommate and she was liable for me, which thank God it was like that. So like she was technically responsible for the rent, but there was proof on paper that I was basically supposed to be paying half of the rent, which I was paying my half. Okay, babe. So we're doing damage control. We're gonna go down there. We're gonna talk to her. We're gonna talk to the leasing office. Yada yada yada. The next day, me and my dad drive down there, and we enter the apartment. I knock on her room door, no one answers. And literally, I feel like God told me. I was like, I open her door and this girl is packed and moved out and gone. And it looks like I'm gonna have to do another part, which I really don't want to do, but it's gonna be out like literally a couple minutes after this video. So go to part 6. Okay, part 6 of my roommate who almost got me killed and tried to leave me homeless. This is the final part, babe. Every other part is on my page posted. Go watch it. Anyway, so I come back with my dad after this girl has just told me that she's unable to pay rent for the month of January and technically now February, right? And she tells me this through text, and the next day when I come back, she is already packed, moved out, and gone, babe. So I'm like, literally when I walked into her room and all her stuff was packed, my jaw like dropped. I was like, oh, heck no. So I text her and I say, when did you move out? Question mark. Now I'm kind of gonna condense this part because at this point I'm sending this girl paragraphs upon paragraphs of paragraph because I'm pissed, but most importantly I'm scared. I'm literally scared because I'm like, who does this? Like, who am I really dealing with? So the gist of what happens is that I'm asking her, I want to find out when she moved out, and I also want to find out when she bought her plane ticket because this girl is from California, okay? Where I go to school is not California, and it's nowhere close to California, babe. So I want to know how premeditated this moving out situation was because she only told me that she had money issues the day before. So that means you had your ticket bought a long time before that. So yeah, I basically wanted to know when she moved out, when she bought her plane ticket, and if she was coming back. So I'm texting her, basically, I'm like, oh, we need to talk to the leasing office. Like, what's the plan? You can't just shut me out like this because we're tied to each other. And she's like, okay, I'll speak to the leasing office. I called her. I'm going to email her. I'll keep you posted. What? Like, and I text her again. I'm like, did you ever have the money to pay for the month of January? Now, I want y'all to understand this as well. At this point, we had owed money she had owed money for the month of February as well. If she told me just January 1st or December 30th or whatever, if she told me prior that she did not have money to pay rent and we would have to move out, I would have no problem with that. I lived 45 minutes away from my school, okay? If she woke me up at 3 a.m. in the morning and was like, hey, I need you to move out because I don't like the fact that your second toe is longer than your big toe. My parents would have been there at 3:01 a.m. I would have been packed and gone, babe, okay? She took that option away from me because she lied. And this is where the 150 that her mom sent me kind of comes in, because I think that was just like like take the last little bits that I can offer you because that's the last thing I'm paying from this portion of the rent. And this girl also was asking me if I wanted to take over the lease. What? So my dad has me send her mom back the money because what that could possibly show proof of is that like I was accepting partial payments, or like we had an agreement of an installment, and there was no agreement of that. And my dad used to be a lawyer, so he's like, send her back the 150. I sent her back a portion of the 150 because it was on written proof that she owed me money from the utility bill that she agreed to pay half of. So I kept that portion. I sent her back the rest of it, and I literally texted her. I was like, I'm sending your mom back $61 from the 150. The other 61 you owe me, and then she also owed me $28. And I was like, I do not accept any other forms of payments from you or your mother at this point. And we also officially reported her to the freaking police. Now, nothing did ever come of the police report, because I mean, I'm not gonna say anything on here that might get me in trouble, but anyway, nothing ever came of it. But I do want to say, I don't think that I conveyed in this story the amount of stress and anxiety that this situation caused me, and really how evil what this girl did or tried to do was. I still say to this day that God was literally protecting me, because first of all, the first issue of the amount of men that this girl was bringing through, dangerous men, okay? And I don't even want to get into that. If you know, you know. If you know me, then you know. To where my life was literally in danger. They could have literally killed me. And then she tried to leave me literally homeless, or leave me with a $4,000 lease within the span of like 24 hours. She informed me and she was like, hey, take over the lease because I'm gone. Yeah. Anyway, that is basically like the end of the story time. Like I said, nothing ever came of the police report. I have not talked to that girl since, never saw her since. The last text message I sent her was about the money and was informing her that I did report her to the police. I'm probably going, if y'all want more like college story times, like crazy college story times, then just let me know, because I probably will put some on my page. I have a story time about the boy that I was dealing with at the time. So yeah, comment below and let me know if you want to, hear about that. But thank you for watching all 4 parts. Thank you.
Time on how my college roommate had the cops called on us. So the dorms that we stayed in had 2 rooms with 2 girls in each room. My roommate we already met, but the girls across from us were random selections. This one roommate who I'm talking about in particular, we're gonna call her Lily. And so Lily and her best friend
lived in the room across from us. Everything was cool. Lily, she was a little bit quirky, but she was super sweet, and she and I got close really quickly. We shared personal details about our lives, including our past relationship history. So a little background on her: she was a photographer and a poet. I'm a cosmetologist, so we based our friendship upon like doing service for service with one another and just getting really close to each other. She joins this performing arts club called, we're gonna call it Hollywood Arts. And my ex-boyfriend is on the e-board for that club, and he had a best friend in there as well. This will come into play later. Our first semester was really cool. Everything was smooth. And we went home for break, came back next semester thinking everything is about to be sweet. Her birthday arrives, and I was supposed to do her nails, makeup, and wax for her birthday. Because our schedules kept conflicting, we were having an issue, and this kind of caused a falling out because she wasn't going to be able to get her birthday services done. We don't speak for a few days, and then when we finally do get to talk to one another, she tells me, if you give me the silent treatment again, I don't want to be your friend anymore. Okay, cool. We get past that. We're good again. One day, I'm waiting for her to get home from her Hollywood Arts meeting, and she comes home super, super late, like out of the ordinary. She comes home. So the next day when I see her, I ask her, I'm like, oh, like, where were you? I'm thinking she found herself a little boo to be with. This girl starts giggling and tells me that she's been in my ex's dorm with him and his friends all night playing video games. Obviously, she knows that this is my ex. She knows, like, the situation between me and him. So I'm upset, but I'm trying not to show it because we had just made back up in our friendship. And this was her organization, and I didn't want to make it awkward for her. Like, I'm not going to tell her, oh, she can't make friends in the club that she's a part of. I let it slide. And so for the next few weeks, I notice she starts spiraling with everything in her life. I'm hearing her on the phone with her brother, cursing him out. She's cursing her mom out. It is not her couple of weeks. I'm kind of keeping my distance from her at this point because I'm still kind of hurt over the ex thing. But we're still cool, you know? I'm keeping it cordial. One night, I'm sitting there with my two roommates, Rizzy and Angie, and we are just chilling. And then Lily comes busting through the door, screaming at the top of her lungs. She's like, oh, your ex and his best friend, they lied to me and blah, blah, blah. And of course, I'm there like automatically irritated because why are you screaming about my ex and his friends? Like, why are y'all so close for you to be screaming about him? I'm confused. But we're all trying to calm her down so that we can understand like what she's complaining about. And so then she's like, they cut me from the performance because remember, she's a poet and they had like performances every semester. They cut me from the performance, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, they did it. They lied to me, blah, blah, blah. And even though I was not really like fucking with my ex or his friend at that moment, I was like, I don't think they would do that to you on purpose, Lily. Like, they're not spiteful like that. And you want to know what this girl told me? She was like, oh, you don't know them the way I do. You don't know him the way I know him. Mind you, at that point, I had been knowing my ex for like a good 3 years. And she had just met him like the semester before. As soon as she said that, I mentally checked out. I just let Angie and Rizzy handle the situation. I start distancing myself even more. And because I'm feeling hurt about it, I hit up my ex. I'm like, what happened that night? Like, why did she come in? I explained to him what had happened. And he told me the reason she was cut from the performance is because she didn't have her piece memorized, and they were supposed to have it memorized weeks ago. So me and my ex finished the conversation. We had also talked about like stuff that had happened between us. So I went to work feeling emotional, and while I was at work, she texted me saying, oh, are you still doing my nails? Because she had asked me to do it again for something. I'm not even in the mood to do her nails because of what had just happened the night before. But I tell her we're going to do it later during the week. I leave my shift that day, still feeling sad. I go in my room, and I'm with my roommate, Angeli, my actual roommate who I shared it with. And I'm crying to her. Lily barges in the door, and she looks at me, and she's like, are you ready to talk now? And Angie turns to her and she's like, we're having a conversation. Mind you, there's like tears down my face while she's saying all of this. And so she storms out. Me and Angie wrap up our conversation and I leave the room to go wash my hair. Before I could even like get all my stuff into the bathroom, she comes storming out of her room. Mind you, Rizzy is sitting at her desk doing whatever. And Angie came out right behind me to go do something at her desk. And she's like, I told you what would happen if you didn't do this to me. If you did this to me again, I told you I didn't want to be your friend anymore. I don't want to be your friend anymore. So I was like, okay, because one thing about me, I'm not going to beg anybody for friendship. If you don't want to be my friend, fine. I said, okay. This girl continues yapping. So now Angie is always 10 toes down, and I know she's going to be watching this. Angie comes in and defends me. She's like, you said you didn't want to be her friend anymore. Y'all established that. There's no reason to keep going on about the situation. Mind you, this girl, Lily, she had issues with everybody in the suite, low-key. But now it's like it was all coming to like this one big thing. When Angie defended me, Lily got really angry and she was like, this is an A and B conversation. You're always inserting yourself when nobody like asked you to include yourself, blah, blah, blah. So they start going back and forth and Lily gets in Angie's face, and Lily is like 5'1", Angie is like 5'8". That was never a thing. And she's like in her face, like pointing her hands in her face, and Angie's like, Lily, if you don't get the fuck out of my face right now, I'm gonna punch you in the face. That set her off. She was like, my mom used to beat my ass every day. I don't care if you hit me. And Angie was like, clearly she ain't beat it enough because look how you're acting. Lily, she opens the door to our dorm and starts going all throughout the res hall, going up and down the stairs, screaming and yelling at the top of her lungs. This girl comes back in the room and then she's screaming even more, foaming at the mouth. I wish I was over exaggerating this. And she gets on her knees and opens her arms. She started screaming, hit me, hit me. And at this point, all of us are just standing above her, just looking at her. We also had a friend over who lived across the hall. So the three of us are just looking at her, four of us, excuse me. And now we're just scared. And Angie was like, I don't even want to fight this girl because like something is very wrong. What are you doing? Angie and I decide to go to our friend's room across the hall, and Rizzy stays behind and records some of her breakdowns.
Are you fucking serious? Would you like me to help you in any way, shape, or form? Huh? I am done.
While we're in the friend's room, we start hearing police walkies. Mind you, they had just finished, like, you know, in the room smoking, and so it's boofing in there. We also just got stuff that we're not supposed to have in the dorm, so we run back across the hall. We're like, we gotta hide everything, we gotta air the room out. So once we finally let the cops in, they're being very nice until she starts being really rude to them. Someone had called the cops because she was making so much commotion. Because of the way she was acting, we were forced to give them our IDs. Immediately after the police left, we went to Res Life and filed a report on her, and she filed one on us too. She invited these two guys over, they moved all her stuff out, and she left that same night. A few weeks later, we got an email saying that we needed to have a investigation by Res Life and a meeting. And in that meeting, we explained to the mediator everything. And she was calling us stupid. She was acting difficult during the meeting. So the mediator kicked her out because of how rude she was being. And we had the full opportunity to be able to show all the evidence that we had. We were found not guilty or whatever you want to call it. She ended up transferring out for the following school year. Then she transferred back in, and I saw her around campus a couple times. I don't think she ever saw me, but I had no beef with her at that point. And then maybe like 3 months ago, she tried to follow me on Instagram, and I have no beef with the girl, but that also doesn't mean we need to be cool on social media. So I just removed her as a follower, and yeah, like when she did that, it just reminded me, and I was like, I kind of need to tell this story one day. I wish her nothing but the best, and she must have really been having a hard time, but I was just over it. Like, she had to go.
I have a roommate horror story that it's time to share. When I lived in Arizona, I went to ASU for a year. I ended up moving into a house with two girls, and one of them ended up staying with me. The other one moved out. There was drama. There was something happened with my ex-boyfriend and her. We're over it. Everybody's over it now. But at the time, it was more comfortable for her to leave the situation rather than stay living with someone who she hurt. So she left. She found a girl on the internet to move in, and that girl moved in. At first, we thought it was a little weird because the girl seemed a little bit older than us. Like, she seemed like she was maybe in her late 20s, and we were in our early 20s, like not even 21 yet for me. And she just had a weird agenda. She said she was going to ASU. You don't question things like this. I mean, you just kind of think, okay, somebody's going to tell the truth. Anyway, things started to get really weird. Her boyfriend ended up moving in with us. Her room became very like gross. Like she wouldn't like take out the trash. It like stunk. She started like texting us cryptic messages, like having weird, like she'd come home and try to talk to us and she couldn't really like say anything, like she was like on drugs. She smoked a crap ton of weed, like a lot. And like, don't get me wrong, we all love a little bit of that in our lives, but this was like incessant. Things started to get uncontrollably weird. She made us feel very uncomfortable. There were times that we felt like she was maybe snooping through our things. She was eating our food, different things like that. So I ended up pursuing having a lock on my bedroom door, and so did my other roommate. We found out that she was lying about going to ASU. She was lying about her job. And I mean, what can you do about that? It was just very odd. We confronted her. She ended up getting a dog without asking us. Her boyfriend is living there. He carried around a gun. It made us very uncomfortable. They'd come in and out late at night. Sorry, there's hair in my eye. And he always did like what we thought. I mean, it was pretty much confirmed, but it's you don't want to admit to these things, like deals from the house, like just like having weird people come over. They'd have weird friends over and they would do drugs and we could like see them in the backyard. It was bad, all around bad. And I'm not a druggie and I don't do drugs. So this was very out of our comfort zone. I end up going on a trip to Mexico for spring break and I'm getting ready to move home anyway. I was leaving ASU, but I stayed a whole year just to say I could. So I went to Mexico with my friends. I locked my bedroom door and I had a great trip. I come home and this is insane. I literally was like, this can't be real life. My house doors are all open. The garage door is open, which, you know, a lot of Arizona houses just like have an overhang. So it's like not really a garage, but you know what I'm saying? That door is wide open. The front door is wide open. The back door to the pool is wide open. I walk inside the house. They had moved like our couch into the kitchen and there was a homeless woman sleeping on the couch. Not only that, there were whippets everywhere. I didn't even know what a whippet was. Everywhere. In the couch, on the floors, on the stove, in the pool, in all over the floors. I mean, like 1,000 whippets, which don't even know what that is. I literally had to look it up and Google it. A bag of drugs on the counter the size of my head. And this drug was white, if you want to fill in blanks. I immediately scream. I'm like, who the as I'm in my house. And I'm looking at this person and she goes, who are you? And I'm like, who the are you? You're in my house. Runs back to the room, runs back out, and they're like, your roommate wants to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. And talk to me about what? Why are you doing in my house? And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? They wouldn't more than crack the door. And this is when I knew something was really wrong. And I had reached out to the landlord a few times and he was like, you know, he didn't want to involve himself. He was helpless. It doesn't matter. He didn't do anything, whatever. It's a bad situation all around. She literally threatened me, said, if you tell anyone about this and you go to our landlord, you don't even know who I am. So how the hell are you going to figure it out, first of all, and get me in trouble? Second of all, you'll regret it. Regret it? What do you mean regret it? Are you threatening my life? I was like, okay, and what? And she's like, I'm like, what are you even threatening? She ended up being, what she says, is involved in the cartel, and she was using a fake name with a fake identity, and we never figured out who she was. And that next day, I unlocked my door, I put everything in my car, and I moved out. Safe to say, I will never live with a random roommate. And we never spoke again. I blocked her on every social media platform there is possible. I never found out her real name. I actually ended up calling Zoomies where she worked and asking about her, and they had similar issues with her, and she had gotten fired like 4 months before for doing drugs in the back. Happy roommate hunting.
Welcome to Miss.sheeena's world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.